Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Parra. Let me check my levels, see if I'm coming through. Yes, I'm coming through. There we go. So let's start off with the obligatory fair use clause. Fair use, fair use. I'm here to review a video by Jamel Hill or recorded by Jamel Hill. And she interviewed Chuck D. Mr. Chuck D of the group Public Enemy, out of New York City, Strong Island. Um, and in this interview, I found a very interesting revelation from Mr. Carlton Douglas Rittenhauer. That's his real name. Chuck, I love you. You know, you're a good guy. I may have crossed paths with you maybe two times in my life. It's not like I even said anything. I just looked at you. One time was from a distance. Another time was more close, but it wasn't. You wouldn't remember me. I came and say I remember the exact time or year. But bottom line is, that's to say, I respect your work. I respect you. I always have. You actually, you were one of the artists that made me look at sobriety from a very honest angle. Now, mind you, I will sip something periodically. And then a long time ago, I will puff something periodically. But just having you as an influence, especially in my very young years, because I was a kid literally when Public Enemy rose to fame. But having you as a celebrity really made me be more aware of my alcohol and marijuana intake, and it also let me know don't go any further than marijuana, a la Flavor Flav's influence. Your his sidekick. Flavor Flav. That was an irony of Public Enemy. The lead vocalist makes you really respect sobriety, and then his sidekick lets you know if you want to dibble and dabble, just don't go to crack. Don't go too far with it. And that thought just occurred to me. That's it. Chuck D. I mean, Public Enemy was really an eye opener musically and everything, musically, emotionally, spiritually, everything. You know, but yeah, I found this video interesting because it delves into what I believe is part of the motives of many upper class Black Americans. They see what's happening between Black Americans and Black immigrants, and Black Americans in the Democratic Party, and Black Americans and corporate America. Shoot, they see everything. They know what's happening, but there's a reason they aren't as vocal as possible. They stay in the shadows, and they even play a role in some of this stuff happening, and especially when it comes to the Black American, Black immigrant issue. They play a role in it. In this video, it lets us know what role they could play, at least by in my belief. But let's start it off. Let's get through this real quick because I need to shorten these videos. So again, we have the fair use clause. Got that out of the way. And now that we have that out of the way, let's bring up the video. There we go. So let's start off. I'm gonna do what I do. Pause, stop. And you know what we do, baby. So let's do this.
Yeah, Uncle Ice, Uncle Chuck. And it's only done in love as saying we want the best for you. So even at the Fight the Power 2020, it ain't about Fight the Power getting light, Chuck D getting light. No, my job is to be able to illuminate and be a prism to show and spread that light so they do their thing. And I'm sitting in a rocking chair watching them do their thing. Like in basketball, Oscar Robertson clapping for James Harden is a good thing. We don't have that in hip hop and rap. And so the full circle to your question, how do I feel about the generational thing? That's how it should be. But we don't just have a generational breakdown. We have a community breakdown. We have a lot of different gaps and breakdowns in there, intentionally so. You know, the prison industrial complex is a place that you don't want to get caught in, because right there they cut the stories off. So they keep the stories of the streets, but the stories of lockdown they keep silent. Right there is something that a president can't fix. But when you look at your local judge and this dude and the jury lock you up just because your ride happened to be woozing for the third time and you ain't really hit or hurt nobody, and they say that weed is legal, but you happen to, you know, swerve a couple of times and a scared cop lock you up, that's local politics. And one thing that came out of this year is you saw young energies march on their local politics and say, shit got to change. Where the hypocrisy and the audacity and the hatred comes out, just to name one out of a long list, is when dude says he gonna give you 10 years to take down a statue, be it Robert E. Lee or some other cracker that's on a $20 bill. And he gonna give you 10 years. But making excuses for this boy that walked around with an AK that shot and killed 2 protesters in Kenosha, Wisconsin. You got no other choice in November 3rd but to avoid fascism. And if you don't know what it is, you best to look it up on Wikipedia. Everybody got a phone attached to them. Look it up. Wiki ain't that whack.
Okay, let's do this. I love Chuck, but he is an artist. He's an older artist on top of that. He's not a scholar, you know. I think he graduated from Adelphi, you know, but that's the extent of his formal education. And even if you don't want to, you know, dwell on formal education, which I don't like to necessarily, he doesn't have a bibliography dating back years that continue to today. He doesn't have like honorary degrees where that it shows that he's put in a lot of scholarly work. So I say all that to say these are his opinions as an individual, not as someone who we should hold in high reverence. And this is coming from a person who loves his work. And love, man, we all love Public Enemy, and that's not just for their, you know, pro-black stance. They made good songs, you know, that didn't even deal with race. You know, Night of the Living Basshead was phenomenal. And yes, there's some racial undertones, but the main part was stay off that crack rock, nigga. Shit, that's non-racial, especially during those days. If I could just give you a film of my memory, like if you could put my memory on film, I would see white people in my hood, you know, they looking for that stuff. But that's neither here nor there. So I say all that to say, like, he's not a scholar. And that's why he rambles sometimes, because that's what you just heard, just a rambling. But because he has a mission, he has a point to make, but he rambles and says a bunch of stuff that's really like whatever. And what's so ironic in this rambling, he says you can't rely, you know, that's not, he said something to the effect of you can't expect the president to fix local politics, which is true. But then if you just heard him, he just told you that we have to go vote in November, you know, because that's his main mission. That's what I'm really getting to. His rambling really is a setup or alley-oop to the point of this interview, is to pretty much advertise and support the Democratic Party. That's what it is. And that's why he said you have to vote and all that other stuff. All the other stuff, all the other, words and, hysteria before the end was just a setup to really say, hey, we have to get out and vote. He's pretty much pulling a Puffy, vote or die. If you remember Sean Combs, if you remember Sean Combs, political campaign for Obama, it was vote or die. It was just dumb as hell, but that's neither here nor there. Got nothing but love for Puff, but that shit was dumb as hell. Vote or die. It was a play on Biggie's Ready or Die. I get it, but whatever. Let's keep it moving.
So the one thing that you will find if you are any just intermediate or novice when it comes to history is like when you go and you study the Nazi regime and then you study what happens in America, what you'll find when you study the Nazi regime is that was not something that happened overnight. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts. And that is not talking about the awful extermination of Jews, but the way that fascism slowly crept in and took over. It was with little things. And then it was ideology. Then it was stuff like immigration law. Yep. Then it was like, it kept going to another level until the next thing they know, they had a full on extermination of a people on their hands.
Yeah.
Okay. She's obviously not even a novice of history. She's lying. Hitler and the Germans didn't focus on immigration. The Jewish people there were citizens. They have been there for generations. I mean, generations. So they didn't deal with immigration law. The reason she's bringing that up is because she knows just as well as Chuck and all of these upper class Black people know, immigration negatively impacts Black Americans on every level, not just poor Black people, not middle class Black people, and not just upper class Black people. It affects all Black Americans, all of us. So that's why she has to, just throw that out there as a way to say if we vote for Trump again, because this is 2 years ago. So this was around the time Trump, lost the election. This is most likely pre-recorded because we all know it's 3 years ago, but you get the idea. And Jamel Hill threw in immigration as a way to say if Black Americans are in any way anti-immigration, then that means they're fascists. No, that's not true. Okay, that's not true when it came to German history or the Holocaust. The Holocaust killed citizens. It was terrible because they killed people based on their religion, and then add in the fact that they're citizens. It's not like they came to America. I mean, excuse me. It's not like they went to Germany no more than like 10 to 15 years or 20 years before Hitler's rise. No, they have been there for generations, just like Jewish people in all areas of Europe. Jewish people have been around forever. We all know. We all have a Bible. It's in every hotel room. I mean, they've been around forever. So, and they're very nomadic and very industrious. So wherever they go, they spread their word, or they share their knowledge. They build up an economy for themselves, and they do business. So bottom line is, what she's saying is not true. They weren't immigrants in Germany. They were citizens. Okay. And that's why they couldn't. And that's why they couldn't get rid of them when you really think about it, is because even if they wanted to get rid of them by, deportation, that's not possible because they were citizens. And that's why, sadly, a lot of them couldn't leave. Like, there's several stories where certain Jewish people wanted to leave, but they couldn't because they're citizens. Just like if you are in America and you owe fines, or if you own child support, you can't leave the country. You can't become a prisoner in your own country. And so that's what happened to a lot of Jewish people. That's how they ended up in the camps many times. They couldn't leave because they were citizens. Now, if they were immigrants, they could always say, hey, you have no jurisdiction over me. I have a right to leave. I'm not even a citizen of this country. And then they could have left and avoided the death camps. But this lady's just lying for nefarious reasons, of course. It's to push the Democratic Party, But let's continue.
So people have this idea that, they look at what happened in Germany and they say, oh, well, how did that happen? This is how it happened. Well, you can't even guarantee a free and fair election, which we can't guarantee anymore. That's what's at stake in November. I know people have their issues.
See, that's what's at stake in November. So everything she said before that was pretty much bull hockey or bull crap. And her main goal is to say, hey, get out and vote for Biden. We know he's not going to do anything, but get out and vote for him. But let's rewind it a little bit, because she'll essentially say that what I just said right now. Hold on.
This is how it happened. Well, you can't even guarantee a free and fair election, which we can't guarantee anymore. That's what's at stake in November. I know people have their issues with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and I'm not saying those issues are not important. Of course they are. However, that being said, and I'm not being dramatic when I say this, if you don't get Donald Trump out of office, you're looking at the last free and fair election you've had. It's over, because there is no way we can have this level of interference. The assault on the post office, what's happening in Georgia, the blatant voter suppression. You think that's coming back? It's only going to continue, and it's going to get worse.
And the thing, and
it's like I said, everything she said after that is what I said. They know that Biden and Kamala are not going to do anything, and we have issues with them. But who cares? Vote for them. Trump's reelection would have been the end of mankind. That's nonsense. We see what's happening right now. Man, I bought some eggs and they were literally $11. Okay. And that's just eggs. Now, I try to stay away from my local grocery store's meat selection. But when I look at the prices, it's crazy. Okay. It's insane. Okay. And just butter costs like $6. It's crazy, but that's neither here nor there. That's just the tip of the iceberg of what's happening and how we're on a decline. In my local area, which is really outside of New York and is a Black majority area, for the first time, I saw migrant workers on this main avenue. Like, literally, they're just out there, just wandering. It's like I've been here for at least, man, I've been here for some time. I've been here for quite a while, and I've never seen migrant workers on this particular street. And this street is usually barren. It's actually depressing because you have all these old, antiquated storefronts and empty sidewalks, which shouldn't feel depressing. It's actually a sign of safety. I mean, at least the empty sidewalks park, the dilapidated storefronts is a whole nother story. But yeah, I saw migrant workers just out of the blue. And it's not really out of the blue, because all of the workers that they ship from, all of the migrant workers that they ship from Texas and Florida were all over New York. They were just, man, if you go to Midtown New York, they were all over the place. And what's so funny is you see them all over the place, and many of them are coming out of nice hotels. Like the government has really like rolled out the red carpet. They're staying at hotels that some Americans could only like dream of staying. It's like, it's just my favorite word, ironic. But to go back to what she said, she's pretty much saying, hey, even though they're not going to do shit for you, you got to vote for them. And that's why she threw in the post office part, because she knows the post office is a well-known institution that'll employ Black Americans. But today, in all honesty, they really just employ Black American women and effeminate men and immigrants. That's just what it is. And I say that because I have relatives who work for the post office for years. And I remember going to a few of their functions, and I could tell you, I don't remember one really heterosexual male or really just regular Black American male. Just can't remember them, and the one guy that I could think of, I'm not going to go into that. That's a story for another day. But the bottom line is, that's why she's doing that post office part. Because I don't know if people know Hollywood Shuffle, but it's an old movie by Robert Townsend. If you know, you know. And the tagline in that movie was, you can always get a job at the post office. If all else fails, you can get a job at the post office. But that's not true today. We all know that the post office is really it's just there to be there. It's a necessity. It's something that needs to stay, in operation, but it's not going to employ people like it used to employ people. At least it's not going to be a means of gainful employment. You'll be able to pay your rent, mortgage, and feed yourself, but it's not going to be the post office of yesteryear. For example, Danny Glover once said, if it wasn't for the post office, he wouldn't have become, Danny Glover, because his parents worked at the main post office in San Francisco. I've been there. I forgot the location, like the street. But his parents worked for the post office, and without the post office, they wouldn't have been able to send him to I think he went to private school, and they definitely wouldn't have been able to send him to San Francisco State University. So the post office did provide a means of gainful employment at one point, but now that's not true. I mean, people sent things in the mail for legal purposes, and what else? And that's essentially it. You can go paperless on all of your bills. People don't have to write letters. They can email you. What other things? Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's really for legal matters. And and you can't say, delivering gifts, because you have UPS, you have FedEx, you have every other shipper who's really more reliable than the post office. But either way, let's continue.
And the thing that hip hop provided for a long period of time is showing the rest of the world the hypocrisies. And hip hop would speak to that. You shut off the rest of the world. Let me tell you, you from Detroit, right? Let me give you real talk. Don't you from Detroit feel it when a New Yorker walk in the room?
Oh, absolutely.
ain't they all about New York? And if you're in New York, somebody with Brooklyn walking out with them, they're like BK on their forehead. That's how the rest of the world feels when the United States comes up. So the rest of the world is like, yo, we cutting y'all off because y'all got too much of that United States arrogance going on. And then y'all elect this dude on your watch. So when you have all these people who hypothesize like what Obama didn't do, and they all the same people, you have to stare at them and also like to say, you know what, man, I got to at least elevate the people with some kind of intelligence to get us out of the trenches, because some can swim in the muck, in the mud, and most are going to drown in it.
And there we go. that is the key part that caught my attention. So for many upper class Black Americans, they know we're in a tight position, and they know the dichotomous nature of our voting practices, the lesser of two evils, but still it's evil, and it's not going to do anything for us. It's very odd. I can't even, express myself clear enough to really say that he essentially said, I don't want to leave America and have to deal with the backlash of my country's politics. I want to be able to travel the world and be the hero that I've always been. I want to be able to have a right to live like James Baldwin, who lived in Europe for years before returning to America. He wants to have the right to live like a W.E.B. Du Bois, who essentially became a Pan Africanist and died in Ghana. He wants to have that access to an exit strategy. That's what it is, really, for the upper class Black people. And I say that because I have family who, have an exit strategy. I still suspect my cousin Pat, God rest his soul if he passed away, but I still suspect something happened where, he had a life insurance policy and now he's in the Caribbean. And that's not to hate on him or to, rat him out, because no one knows who I'm talking about. But bottom line is, people have exit strategies. And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, you know. But with Chuck, what's wrong with it is because you just want to, you want shit to go on and for you to travel and make money, because he makes most of his money abroad, and you want to have an exit strategy. It's like you want to double dip out this motherfucker. These people I'm talking about who have an exit strategy, that's at the end of their retirement. I mean, this is at the end of their employment. That is, this is when their retirement begins. This is, they're making their money here. So they just want to leave to maybe have, a better climate. Some of them want to. I mean, for some of the males in the generation right above me, the Gen Xers, the older Gen Xers, they want a family. They want to, go somewhere where they can have a family, or for the few that I know who've done that, they want a chance at a second family to do it right to their satisfaction, if that makes sense, So, and I'm not talking about passport bros. I'm talking about men who've actually moved to these places not yesterday or not in the recent past. They've been going back and forth from their country of choice for maybe a decade or more. They didn't find a woman on their first trip. No. They've like, I know one person particularly who's gone to a Latin American country since the 90s, and he built up a relationship with this business owner who owned a bar or whatever, a lounge, and he got to know him, and then he became like extended family, and then they introduced him to a woman, and now he's with this woman. If that makes, I mean, it makes sense. Of course, you're geniuses. I'm a dumb nigga from Brownsville. But the bottom line is, to get back to Chuck, I believe this is the Black American upper class Negroes motivation for not fighting for us in terms of, the whole Black immigrant um dilemma. I can't say dilemma. I don't even know what to call it. I don't want to call it a conflict, a dilemma. Issues is kind of iffy too, but the tumultuous relationship between Black Americans and Black immigrants is something that he and his cohort, or people like this motherfucker. Let me stop with that shit. This motherfucker This motherfucker doesn't want to confront it so he could go abroad and chill the fuck out and have fun instead of being confronted by locals. Like, if especially for Black Americans, they don't want that problem because when they go abroad, they're looked at as heroes. To my knowledge, that's what everybody says. But they don't want to feel like a white American because there's so many videos online where white Americans are like just going out and about, and then somebody says, "Hey, you're American, get the fuck out of here." Especially in countries where we have bases, there's so many videos of U.S. servicemen just wanting to, you know, decompress by going out among the locals. And then a local says, "Hey, aren't you a soldier? Get the fuck out of here." Chuck D doesn't want to have to deal with that, or upper class Black Americans don't want to have to deal with that. And that's why he even said at the end of his little spiel is, he acknowledged that some people say Obama didn't do anything for us. I mean, for Black Americans, that is. And he didn't. He didn't do shit. He did more harm than. I'm not gonna say that because you Negroes are still in love with this motherfucker. I'm gonna call him motherfucker. Still in love with this motherfucker. So I get it. Okay, it's not time for us to really zero in on everything he did, But yeah, but let's rewind that. Let's hear him say it one more time so we can finish this up.
Their election, which we can't guarantee anymore. That's what's at stake in November. I know people have their issues with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and I'm not saying those issues are not important. Of course they are. However, that being said, and I'm not being dramatic when I say this, if you don't get Donald Trump out of office, you're looking at the last free and fair election you've had. It's over because there is no way we can have this level of interference. The assault on the post office, what's happening in Georgia, the blatant voter suppression. You think that's coming back? It's only going to continue, and it's going to get worse.
And the thing, and the thing that hip hop provided for a long period of time is showing the rest of the world the hypocrisies. And hip hop would speak to that. You shut off the rest of the world. Let me tell you, you from Detroit, right? Let me give you real talk. Don't you from Detroit feel it when a New Yorker walk in the room?
Oh, absolutely.
ain't they all about New York? And if you're in New York, somebody with Brooklyn walking out with damn near like BK on their forehead. That's how the rest of the world feels when the United States comes up. So the rest of the world is like, yo, we cutting y'all off because y'all got too much of that United States arrogance going on. And then y'all elect this dude on your watch. So when you have all these people who have hypothesized like what Obama didn't do, and they all the same people, you have to stare at them and also like to say, you know what, man, I got to at least elevate the people with some kind of intelligence to get us out of the trenches because some could swim in the muck, in the mud, and most are going to drown in it. And the rest of the world then cut that passport off. The rest of the world said, yo, I don't care if you don't get no black card. You can't come here because you let that dude in on your watch and you arrogant anyway. So, like F you on that, I don't care where you from. Y'all, every time I see videos, y'all throwing money at the camera and all. We trying to like Africa. Let me tell you, Africa.
Oh, okay. I got to pause it because the irony of him saying that is, the irony of we throw money at the camera, with megalomaniacs, with narcissists. I mean, I never liked that shit. I'll be real. I never cared for like throwing money at the camera and all that other crap. But they do it too. So what the hell is this? Look at this. Look at this. Let's look at this. Burna Boy. Yeah. However that shit goes. He throws money at the camera. Yeah. And that's not just the only still or the only picture I could find. Here we go. He's doing the money phone. And let me tell you something. I remember when this song became popular, And a girl abroad that I met online she sent it to me. And I told her what I just said no more than 5 minutes ago. I don't like this shit. I've never liked this shit. The closest I came to even accepting this shit was fucking Jay-Z's video on Feeling It, you know. And that's it. And that's because he used it, or even Dead Presidents, you know. They didn't throw money at the camera, but money was like very prominent in the video. And the only reason I liked it is because it was a sign of growth. It was a sign of it was aspirational. That's the word. It was aspirational. So I liked it at that time. And hip hop just came off the heels of all of this poor righteous teachers, poverty celebrated, the celebration of poverty. That's a better way to say it. I was going to say poverty celebrating. I could say that. Who gives a fuck? But yeah, he or Jay-Z represented us going to that next level, where we can have family, structure, community. That's the only time I really care for that shit. Other than that, I couldn't stand that shit. And once Jay-Z went too far with it, like just making it like a little too gaudy, I left that shit alone. Jay has been like an off and on nigga for me, more off than on. No offense to him, but it is what it is. And who am I? I'm a dumb nigga from Brownsville. Who gives a fuck about my opinion? But the bottom line is, yeah, to get back to Chuck, he's talking about foreigners saying like we're throwing money at the camera and all this other stuff while they're doing the same shit. And that's what I told the girl from overseas in Europe. I don't like this shit. And I don't know why. Like, I told her, if I don't like my American rappers doing that shit, what makes you think I'm gonna like somebody overseas doing that shit? The fuck is it? I don't like that shit. Shit is stupid. It's really just stupid. And for one, I thought it was always stupid because of the street angle. I was always taught, wrap your money in a bunch of ones. I don't know. That was what I was taught. Like, if you got like a $2,000 on you, or 1,000 or 200, however much it is, you wrap that shit up in ones, okay? And that's to say, you don't broadcast how much money you're carrying or how much money you have. That sets you up for fucking robbery, set you up for burglary and shit. The fuck? Shit, I learned how to fix shit on my own and wherever I've lived. I mean, since I was a young adult, I learned how to fix shit so I could keep motherfuckers out of my home looking at my shit. Okay, I'll figure the shit out. Okay, if that stair is falling apart, let me get under the house. I don't give a fuck about that raccoon, and I'm gonna fix that stair. Okay. Man, we're already at 43 minutes. Let me finish this shit off. But that's just to say, Chuck is saying that shit. But Burna Boy started off throwing money. That is like, I can't think of any other artist really, because most of their artists are boring and they all sound the goddamn same. Yeah, I may do an Afro Beats video. Oh, that shit. It all sounds the fucking same. All of it. That shit is fucking repetitive. And the brain likes repetition, but it also likes a change in repetition. Something could sound, let me stop, man. Let's finish this shit off. Okay. Bring this nigga Chuck back up because he doesn't have much more to say, There we go.
Africa is the future of any thought that we might have, and not from thinking back in the past.
No,
saying future.
Let's rewind that just a little bit.
That's how the rest of the world feels when the United States comes up. So the rest of the world is like, yo, we cutting y'all off because y'all got too much of that United States arrogance going on. And then y'all elect this dude on your watch. So when you have all these people who have hypothesized like what Obama didn't do, and they all the same people, you have to stare at them and also like to say, you know what, man?
I would like to say, I know, let me finish this shit. If that is a true fear, you know, going abroad as a Black American and having foreigners look at you the same as they look at white Americans, which they do technically when they come here, especially they do. But you know, if it's true that, you know, his fear is that he doesn't want to have to deal with any type of pushback, why wouldn't he want to, you know, engage these people and tell them what's happening when you guys come to our country? Like, let's say he goes to the UK and he's confronted by a Black Brit. You know, he could say, hey, we love you guys, but when you come to our country, you don't send over people who want to work with us or be a part of our community. You send over agents of chaos. So maybe if you didn't send over agents of chaos, maybe we wouldn't feel like, you know, we need tighter immigration laws. Maybe Trump wouldn't win, you know? So, you know, he just doesn't want to have the discussion. Let's finish this shit.
I got to at least elevate the people with some kind of intelligence to get us out of the trenches, because some can swim in the muck, in the mud, and most are going to drown in it. And the rest of the world then cut that passport off. The rest of the world said, yo, I don't care if you don't get no black card. You can't come here because you let that dude in on your watch and you arrogant anyway. So, you know, like, F you on that, you know, I don't care where you from. Y'all, every time I see videos, y'all throwing money at the camera and all. We trying to, like, Africa. Let me tell you, Africa is the future of any thought that we might have, and not from thinking back in the past. I'm saying future. They know that they can't go forward and be stupid. They know that they can't go forward and be individuals, and they know that they can't go forward and just try to kowtow to what everybody else in the world is kind of doing all the time, without them saying we step in front and foremost in how we do it. So y'all come here and check us out. We not checking you out no more. So therefore you in a box, right? You think people would do boxed up? We've been boxed up since the pandemic. Now, when you realize the real box outside of the boxing up, then you know that you got no other choice to get past whatever you got to get past on November 3rd. Then you got to get turned up even more so.
Okay, you heard him. So all of that blabbering was really a setup for a campaign slogan. Get out and vote. Vote on November 3rd. You know, fuck what you heard. You heard? That's what he pretty much said. But let's finish this shit off. You heard what he said. Africa is the future. The only reason these people are saying this, because he's not the only one to say this shit. He's like one of many that I've heard say this shit. And it's by my estimation that they only say this shit because of this fact and this fact alone. Okay? It's because of this. Let's blow this up a little bit more. Here we go. Africa has the youngest population in America. So, what, you know, you already know what that means. That means they're primed to have the largest consumer base on planet Earth in the very near future. I think one African country, I can't remember the name of the country, is 54 of the motherfuckers, but their median age is like 15 to 18 or something. That's young as fuck for a national median age. And this is all despite Ebola, HIV, malaria, all types of shit that could shorten your life in Africa. Because I think the life expectancy rate for Africa is still like 50, or I know in their 40s. That's a life expectancy rate there for real. And not there in Africa, but in a country. I'm not gonna look it up. I've already gone on too long as is. But yeah, this is why Chuck said Africa is the future. It's because they're going to have the youngest population, which is the largest consumer base. That's why I saw a video of Dapper Dan in, I think, Ghana or the Gambia. But it was a video of a fashion show for Gucci, I think. And I'm like, they're just priming these people to become consumers just like you made us consumers. You made me waste $300 on a Gucci belt when I was a kid. You know, this is before you could get a counterfeit Gucci belt. But you just, that's what it's all about when it comes to that statement, you know, Africa is the future. It's not because they're inventive or hardworking. I don't even know if we can turn them into our manufacturing hub like we made China our manufacturing hub. Because honestly, China is elevating its middle class to upper middle class, and that it's like they're running short, or they will run short on supply of people who will work on the lower levels. So what they may try to do is shift that over to Africa. I don't know if you could do that in Africa, honestly. Africa is 54 countries. It's not like China. China's one country, with Hong Kong being a part of it technically, but it's one country. Africa's 54 countries. So it's going to be a crazy logistical matter to find the countries that could take over the manufacturing base. But I say all that to say that their youth, or their population of young people, is something they're factoring in for things like manufacturing. You know, that's what I believe. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You know, corporate America does this. It finds a population to exploit, and once that population gets too comfortable, they find a new population to exploit, and that's just how it is. I mean, you know, that's just how it is. So I don't see anything wrong with doing business in any African nation. But for Chuck, I have a problem with him saying that's the future. Is you know, take it or leave it. Like, you know, just shut up, deal with it. Even though, you know, there's no African nation that's proven that they're self-sustaining and innovative and hardworking. Not one. Not even Nigeria. I mean, and they have the richest black man on planet Earth. I think I don't know if I said this in another video, but he built the oil refinery in Nigeria, but it took him 10 years to build something that usually is built in a matter of months in America. It's like it's gonna be a fucking shit show once they make that shift from like China or Asia, period. Like things made in Korea, Vietnam, Taiwan, not necessarily Japan, but in those other Asian or India, once, because India's on the verge of making the shift too, from, you know, elevating their middle class. I mean, their middle class, yeah, elevating their middle class to upper middle class. So that means they won't want to work in call centers anymore. You know, they won't want to, you know, stitch our t-shirts. Because I remember a time where you could your t-shirts would say made in India. You know, you don't see it as much anymore, I think. But bottom line is, that's why Chuck said, you know, Africa is the future. Man, man, I don't want to tell you to shut up, Chuck, because I have nothing but love for you. You know, and you're an open and honest person. That's one thing about Chuck I can't say. If you approach him online, he won't act like sedity and uppity. He won't act like a lot of these other rappers, or not just rappers, black celebrities, and ignore you. He will actually respond to you, and it's kind of ironic. It's like, the fuck, you know, he's worse than, no, he's not worse. But what I am going to say, who's worse than him is fucking Talib Kweli. That nigga's crazy, and I'm gonna deal with that nigga in 2 hot seconds. But yeah, but that's the end. You know, in summary, this video I wanted to use as a possible reason the upper class Black American group, or the group of Black Americans in the upper class, however you like to say it, this is their reasoning. They don't want to be cut off from the outside world. They want to be able to go to the Caribbean during the winter and still receive the royal treatment. They want to be able to go to Africa and, you know, be treated like royalty. You know, they want to go to Europe and be able to go to Amsterdam and smoke and chill and have fun. They want to be able to go to Cairo and go to the, you know, pyramids and just, you know, hang out. That's what they want to do. Okay. And that's their right. But your luxuries shouldn't cause my discomfort. Okay, motherfucker. And, you know, not to drag this out, but his reasoning, or their reasoning, is no different from the drug dealer in the 80s. So the whole community has to suffer because you want a Benz. The whole community has to suffer because you want fucking name brand clothes. The whole community has to suffer because you want to wear jewelry. The whole community has to suffer because you want to take your girl on a trip. Come on, man. Get the fuck out my face, man. Fuck out my face. Shit, I'm done. Take care.